Hi everyone. Today I'm going to share the unforgettable story of Graf, a young black Labrador who was hit by a car and left in a desperate condition. But after being rescued, Graf didn't just recover and move on. Instead, he did something that would inspire an entire community and change the lives of those who helped him in ways they never imagined. Stay with us in peace and love as we take you through this heart-wrenching tale. Graf's life changed in an instant, one fateful day in Lobazovka, a quiet town where everything seemed peaceful. This innocent black Labrador, just 1.5 years old, had been out for a walk, but it wasn't supervised, as it should have been. In the blink of an eye, tragedy struck. A car speeding down the road hit him with a devastating force. The impact was severe, his spinal cord was damaged, and he was left lying helplessly in the water, unable to move. The pain must have been excruciating for such a young dog, but there was no one around to help. As soon as someone saw him, he became terrified. No one could find his owners right away because the road was empty. It was a heartbreaking moment when they realized this dog was badly hurt and by itself. Graf had a clear spine fracture, and no one was around to take care of him. His future looked bad. Unfortunately, fate had other ideas. No matter how bad things looked, someone stepped in to make sure that this poor dog wouldn't be left behind. Oksana Savchuk, a woman dedicated to rescuing animals, was on the road to her home when she heard a dog barking for help. Following the sound, she discovered a black Labrador lying in the water, unable to move. It was clear that the dog had been hit by a car. His legs were immobilized and he seemed to be in severe pain. Without hesitation, Oksana rushed to the dog's side. She saw that the dog was frightened but desperate for help. His condition was critical and she knew she had to act quickly to save him. There was no one else around, and the Labrador was alone in his suffering. Realizing the urgency, Oksana immediately called for help and began to carefully move the dog out of the water, trying to comfort him as best as she could. She was sure that the only way for them to stay alive was to get him to a vet office right away. Strong-willed, she set out to make arrangements for the hurt dog's transportation while staying by his side to reassure and comfort him during this scary time. Upon arrival at the VETLIFE clinic, the medical staff was quick to take the dog in. Oksana felt a sense of relief that they would finally receive the professional care the dog needed. The first step was crucial, stabilizing the dog's condition before they could move forward with any treatment. The veterinary team worked swiftly to assess the dog's condition. After a thorough examination and an X-ray, the diagnosis was delivered with a mix of concern and professionalism. The black Labrador had suffered a severe spinal fracture, specifically in the L1 and L2 vertebrae, causing damage to his spinal cord. The prognosis was grim. He was unlikely to ever walk again, and his inability to urinate on his own posed an additional concern. The vet explained that the dog might need permanent care, including catheterization and assistance with basic bodily functions. Oksana felt a wave of confusion and uncertainty wash over her. The news was devastating. She had only found this dog moments ago, and now she was faced with a heart-wrenching decision. Should she take on the immense financial responsibility of treating him? The surgery required to stabilize his spine and offer any hope for a future would cost a significant amount. Not to mention, there would be follow-up treatments, medical bills, and long-term care. Could she afford it? Could she do this alone? Her thoughts also turned to the dog's owner. Who were they? How had this dog ended up on the road, injured and abandoned? Oksana's heart ached as she thought about the possibility that the dog's owners might never come forward. She had already tried to reach out to them, but there had been no response. Would the owners take responsibility if they were found? Or had they abandoned the dog, perhaps not knowing the gravity of the injury? When the vet laid out the options for treatment, Oksana felt a deep conflict within her. She wasn't sure if she was doing the right thing, but as she looked at the dog, this sweet, vulnerable creature who had already suffered so much, Oksana made up her mind. She couldn't abandon him now. The surgery, the treatments, the care, she would pay for it all. She would not let this dog suffer, even if it meant putting herself in a difficult situation financially. Oksana would be there for Graf. Once Oksana decided to go ahead with the surgery, there was no going back. The surgery was quickly set up. The process itself was very hard and took a long time. Graf's spine was carefully stabilized by the medical team, who used metal implants to realign the vertebrae and give his body the support it needed. The days right after surgery were the most important. When Graf woke up after the surgery, the world seemed foreign and strange to him. His body felt heavy, and he couldn't understand why he couldn't move his legs. He had been a lively, energetic dog, always running, playing, and exploring, but now he lay still, the pain of the surgery mixing with a deep confusion. Graf tried to lift his head, but the reality of his immobility settled over him like a shadow. His body was no longer his own, and the world he once knew seemed distant and unreachable. His tail, which had always wagged with excitement, now lay motionless on the bed. He tried to move, but the sharp pain from the injury and the surgical site made it impossible. For a few moments it felt like the world had come to a standstill, and in his confusion, Graf felt a deep sense of loss. What happened to me? He might have wondered. Where did everything go? One thing was clear, though, even through the pain and confusion, Oksana was there. Her voice, soft and reassuring, called his name, and her hand gently stroked his head. He knew her. He had known her for only a short time, but in that moment, Oksana was his anchor. She whispered comforting words, telling him he was safe now, that the worst was over, and that she wouldn't leave him. The touch of her hand, the warmth of her presence, brought him a sense of calm. As days passed, Oksana became his world. She was with him every step of the way, never leaving his side as he adjusted to his new reality. At first, the confusion lingered in Graf's eyes. He wasn't sure how to trust his body again. He couldn't walk, couldn't feel the ground beneath his paws. Yet, despite the uncertainty and frustration, Graf began to find comfort in Oksana's care. She helped him with everything, feeding him, gently repositioning him, and administering his medications. At times, when his body trembled from weakness, she would hold him close, offering a sense of safety he had never known before. The first time Oksana took him outside for fresh air, she carefully placed him in his new wheelchair, and for the first time in days, Graf felt a small sense of movement. The wheels didn't quite make him feel as he had before, running freely without a care, but they allowed him to feel the breeze and experience the world from a different perspective. Graf's trust in Oksana grew with each passing day. He learned to depend on her as his caretaker, his advocate, and his friend. Though he could no longer chase after sticks or run through open fields, he found a new form of joy in small moments. When Oksana would sit with him, gently rubbing his ears, or when he would struggle to roll his wheelchair a few inches forward, encouraged by her patience and praise. Every time he made progress, even in the smallest way, Oksana celebrated him, and in return, Graf gave her his unwavering affection. As weeks turned into months, the road to recovery was anything but easy for Graf. Each day was a challenge. His body, weakened by the trauma and surgery, struggled to adjust to his new reality. But Graf wasn't the type to give up. Despite the frustration and confusion he often felt, there was a quiet determination in his eyes that told Oksana he wasn't going to let this injury define him. Oksana worked tirelessly, helping Graf build strength. She would spend hours by his side, coaxing him through physical therapy sessions that were painful but necessary. His legs were weak, and the nerves in his spine had been damaged beyond repair. Yet with each passing day, his body showed small signs of improvement. Slowly but surely, Graf began to move his legs on his own, despite the heaviness in his body. His tail twitched occasionally, and when he saw Oksana's smile, a flicker of hope would ignite within him. There were nights when Oksana would sit with him by the fire, stroking his fur while he rested his head on her lap. Graf, once full of playful energy, was now content with these quieter moments. He seemed to understand that Oksana had become his rock, the person who would always be there, no matter what. In those moments of quiet connection, Oksana realized how much Graf had healed her too. When she had first encountered him on that cold, lonely road, she had been unsure of what lay ahead, both for him and herself. But now, as she watched him resting peacefully, she knew that the love they had for one another was powerful enough to weather any storm. No matter what the future held, they had each other. And that, Oksana believed, was the most beautiful thing in the world. What do you think about Graf's amazing recovery? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment of hope or transformation like this? Share your thoughts and stories with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, Pets in Love, for more incredible rescue stories that highlight the power of kindness and the life-changing impact of a second chance. Thank you for joining us today. See you in the next video!